We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
With Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody. And it's La Coca Nostra time, huh? If you don't know about La Coca Nostra, let me tell you, I'm not talking cartel style. I'm talking about the hip-hop rock supergroup, La Coca Nostra. A couple really good underground albums out there. And then we can talk nose candy Biden. And by the way, guys, we're not even really going to focus too much on this issue. This is really going to be an election integrity show and talk about the FBI and fortifying elections. We're going to fortify some elections today and how this Russian narrative is still being pushed by the FBI, by Homeland Security, by the establishment, by the tech companies that masquerade as free enterprise and are Trojan horse civilian systems of the military-industrial complex and the great narratives they'd like to push. But it's beyond just great narrative pushing. It's beyond debunking and derailing. They've gone beyond the point where individuals are the ones that they want to go after the most. And when I say individuals, I mean you look at a John Lennon, an RFK Jr., obviously a JFK. You look at an MLK. In modern times, it hasn't been an outright takeout. It's been a takedown. And that's still deployed. But instead of individuals, they want large swaths, huge groups to be criminalized, and those groups will be lumped together under the guise of bigotry and white supremacy, which we see all the time, which has no basis in actual reality, but it gives them their little pre-crime baby mama drama to stop anybody that would oppose the great narrative. And remember, you don't have to be white to be a white nationalist or a bigot or a white supremacist. Not anymore, because we're in the post-truth world. And when they find white powder in the White House, it can't be Hunter's. Hunter wasn't there. It's not Hunter Biden's. Whatever you think about this cocaine, let's get this straight. Just like the laptops were had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. I'm calling it now, just like you'll see this FBI guy, Elvis Chan, blame everything on Russia. I think the Russians got that cocaine in there. That's what happened. By the way, there's conflicting reports on the size and the whereabouts of the cocaine. That seems to be moving around. But what doesn't seem to be, I guess, under debate is that it was like hidden away in some kind of cubbyhole, or it was obviously you're not just leaving a bag of cocaine out. At least if you're, not a drug addict, or a sneaky Russian. Yeah, the drug addicts will put things around in case they relapse or want to relapse or in an emergency. Now, obviously, it can't be Hunter. I see now it's getting floated around. It was found where people like the guests are brought in. Here's my thing on the guest theory of the cocaine. If it's a guest, unless it's those pesky Russians in a setup, I mean, those Russians can get to just about anybody. The Ruskies, the Bears, they can get them all. They're pretty crafty. And we found that out from 2016 on, that Poot and the gang are the craftiest of the crafty. But let's say someone does get cocaine into the White House. It wouldn't be the first time, ain't going to be the last time. Let's be realistic. I went down the nose candy loving presidents the other day, and I know that drugs are bad with George Bush Sr. Now, Bush Sr. never struck me as the kind of guy that was into cocaine, but you never know. The guy was very crafty, hid things. His son certainly was. It was very, very public that George Jr., the W, he liked it. He liked it a lot. Now, the public persona of Bill Clinton that the media wrote on, and this just shows you how bad the media was then. Think about this, guys. Bill Clinton, all the evidence in the world, he's riding around with Jennifer Flowers and God knows who else, doing blow all the time. They arrested his brother in a blow deal where his brother is on tape saying, "Gotta get some for my brother. He's got a nose like a vacuum cleaner." It's in my film Invisible Empire. Okay, that's baseline. Then you get into the Iran-Contra scandal and how it takes place in large part at Mena, Arkansas, at least a good chunk of it. And that's never brought up. And what the media runs with on Bill Clinton and drugs is, did he inhale when he might have smoked pot in college one time? This is... Boy, they gotcha, huh? I mean, do you see how media manipulation, the great narrative, works? Now, at that time, there are no email chains even. Forget about the World Wide Web and the magic box and the social media and people whap-a-dap-a-doop-a-dop on the phone. Not only in FaceTime, but going live on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Not there. And then the media companies, even at the time, when Clinton was first running, if you had like 20 channels, that was like a lot. Certainly no DVR. Certainly no DVR. So, if you wanted to show somebody something, you pretty much had to catch it live. You had to do it live, Bill O'Reilly style. But they manipulated the public into thinking Bill Clinton might have inhaled marijuana instead of like Coke Monkey McGraw. Okay, so we got two down there. We got George Jr., we got Coke Monkey McGraw. All right, that's baseline. Reagan didn't strike me as one. Carter didn't strike me as one. Who knows? I don't know what darkness lurks in the hearts of men. But I can tell you this, that if a guest got it in, what are they doing hiding it for? What are they getting, an additional pat down once they get into the White House? And isn't that risky? Unless it's those damn pesky Russians, man. I'm putting dollars to donuts on the Russians. I wouldn't doubt it if, Putin got one of those new fandangled masks all the kids are talking about. When they're wrongly accusing Joe Biden of wearing a mask, or I've seen the Damar Hamilton was a mask, or all that other stuff. No, Poot's got the mask. And actually, Poot probably sometime in the past couple months, right, because he's not happy about what's going on in Ukraine, he had his Hunter Biden mask on. And he got through. He had the Hunter Biden mask, the gloves, the whole thing, the lifts. Hunter's a little taller than Poot. And he gets in there, And he just sets Hunter up. First, he does a little blow on camera. Fake blow, because, poot. It was like vitamin sauce. But then he leaves the real deal there, only to be found now. That's probably what happened. Oh, my goodness, guys. I'm having fun with this one. So, don't worry. It is going to get solved. We promise. There's no hiding now. Secret Service orders DNA and fingerprint analysis of dime-sized cocaine bag found in the West Wing. Excuse me. Found on Sunday in a small zippered bag in a cubbyhole in the lobby area of the West Wing, where visitors leave their cell phones and other items. So, again, you'd have to be a pretty big putz and a pretty bad cocaine addict to somehow drop cocaine into where everybody leaves their cell phones. And can we believe anything that comes out of the FBI or the Secret Service or the DOJ at this point? I'd say it's pretty tough. I wish they had a better track record too, guys. I really do. I want to believe. But remember, they've already changed this. Everybody's making sure to let you know that they were at Camp David, the Bidens, Hunter and Joe. And Joe's keeping a really good eye on them. And I don't think it's that Joe is, because Joe doesn't know what's going on. And Joe's probably just happy to have his son around. I think, obviously, the handlers are just like, look, man, we're doing our best here. We just cut you the God's honest best court deal you could imagine. We just cut you a deal where you were paying, I believe he's paying $80,000 a month on that kid that they don't even have to acknowledge. Again, the darkness is real. And that's why the election thing is really important, because they're getting ready to elect this guy again. And I do believe they won't run him. They just don't want any debates. If they take him out before the election, when I mean take him out, I mean politically. Because I don't think that, unless the hand of God himself comes down and calls to Joe Biden to toss him back into the pits of Hades, okay, he's as protected as it gets. Unless that's, I just don't see it. I've heard people say that he's got one more job, et cetera, et cetera. That would be a game-changing event. I'll admit that. They would try to martyr him big time after that. I'd want to throw up the way they try to deify this guy. I'm Joey B. the gangster, Zombie J, the poopy pants puppet with the demon son. Think about how low of character these people are. It's incredible to me. But, again, they're going to run him. I think he wins the election. Now, whether he gets sworn in or not, that's it. Between winning the election and getting sworn in, that's where you could bring in any kind of scandal. I mean, any kind of scandal. The guy's got... Or he could just step down due to mental capacity. They want a handoff. They don't want Kamala Embarrass in there for some reason. I can't... I can understand why they don't want it. I remember just, again, thinking of the nightmare that would have been like Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, or Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. Newsom, they love Newsom because he's bent the knee in every direction they've asked, especially for California policy, really being a model on this. But it's incredible to me. Like I said, they've got Hunter under wraps right now. They've cut him every deal, $80,000 to $5,000. So now, look, 60 G's in, kid care a year. That's pretty good for the average person. This guy's riding around on private jets, being exonerated of corrupt foreign deals to the tunes of millions in kickbacks at no-show jobs. We're about to go to break. When we come back, I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman named Elvis Chan. We're going to be talking about fortifying elections and why I don't think that, there's any chance for RFK Jr., unfortunately, to get the nomination in the Democratic Party. I want to be wrong. And I don't think there's any way that Donnie T gets the Republican nomination for a number of reasons. But we can talk about that after this word from our sponsor.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets, sleepwear, dog beds.
Whoa, Charles. Everyone now can get MyPillow products at huge discounts at MyPillow.com. That's right. Now's the time to go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our 3-in-1 sale. We're bringing you exciting new products, overstock specials, and closeout deals you won't find anywhere else. For example, when you buy one of our brand new MyPillow 2.0s, you get another one absolutely free. And with our overstock sale, you save 50% on our luxurious Giza Dream bed sheets. That's as low as $29.99 for the best sheets ever. And with our biggest closeout special, you get our all-season slippers for only $35. Or our sandals and slides for just $25. Quantities are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Once they are gone, they are gone. All right. I've actually got one clip before we get to Elvis Chan and the gang and the fortifying elections. And this guy, who, by the way, just gave like a 6-hour deposition a few months ago showing the collusion with the Justice Department and big tech just to censor the mother truck out of you. Right? And the truth. And I mean, it's unbelievable. But again, you have these proxy networks of plausible deniability. We didn't really order it. It wasn't a government order. That's not censorship. It's a private company. The government told us to do it. They told us it was Russian disinformation. It's set up that way. It's set up in a network and web of lies. But before we go away from the Biden administration, although this really ends up being about the Biden administration, because in my opinion, it's how the Biden administration even came to being. But if you say that, you're an election denier. You're also probably Putin wearing a mask. You're probably a Russian bot on social media, right? Or you're ultra MAGA, white supremacy, bigot style. That's what they love to paint you there. That's what they really, really want. Okay? Period. So, I want everybody to check this clip out of George Soros. He babbles for about 10 seconds, and then he lets you know about Joey B and the Ukraine. Remember when we played that Soros piece on 60 Minutes, did the whole thing, and he happened to be in Ukraine in the 90s with Hillary Clinton of all people? Well, he's got another bagman in Ukraine, and his name is Joe Biden.
Our best foundations. They refuse to leave, and they are leading civil society. I also want to mention that there is one person who was very deeply involved in Ukraine, and that's Biden. In fact, I got to know him with regard to Ukraine. He had a lot more patience than I had in trying to convert Poroshenko into a democratic leader. I fed up with him and I told him so, but actually Biden kept on. Trying to convert Poroshenko into a Democrat.
Look at that face. To a Democrat. Once again, what democratic policies are we talking about in Ukraine? Why the suspended elections? The arrest of journalists? Political opponents? The installation of an actor puppet that I saw in a one-on-one interview with some woman reporter. He's impish. He's the kind of person that got into entertainment, because that's what he is. He's a comedian. He's an actor, because he got pushed around so much as a kid, because he's tiny. Tiny. He's the ultimate. I mean, he's a puppet. Like, I'm trying to think about somebody that's large in stature in the political arena. Jesse Ventura, why not? Jesse's a pretty big guy. If he put Zelensky on his lap and his hand on his back, it would look like a comedian's ventriloquist show. dress him up like Rambo, right? And we'll dress Jesse up like Biden, huh? But Biden's not puppeteering anything. Can't really dress him up like Soros. I mean, Soros is so ghoulish. Soros is going. His mind is still sharp, but the body ain't there. It's getting pretty weak. That's why he's giving it over to his son, giving in the reins. All right, I promised it. You're gonna get it. By the way, thumbs this up. We don't even have 50 thumbs up. Subscribe, share. I want to remind everybody the second hour is going to be over at rvmrumble.com. That's rvmrumble.com. And redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. We do less Soros and more great interviews. My Kurt Metzger interview, I think, is top-notch, top of the line. It's from this past weekend. Red Voice has now just made more of the past interviews free from premium, but redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. You get 2 interviews extra a week. This one's 1 because it's almost 2.5 hours long. We broke it up into 2 segments. I don't want the vast majority of people watching something for an hour and then turning it off and then not coming back to it. So you make 2 thumbnails, you put it out there. Usually it gets more engagement. So that's why we did that. redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. Again, you can try for $1. It is $10 a month after that. And then it is $100 for the year if you want to lock it in, really support the broadcast, where we do it live in real time here, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And the Red Voice block moves on all the way to 8:30 p.m. So a lot going on. I want to really thank redvoicemedia.com for getting behind me and allowing me to do a show that is really 100% me, right? No one really does anything else. No one tells me, hey, you're going to cover this, or we're going to have this person on, or none of it. I wake up in the morning, I think about what I want to talk about or what kept me up all night, right? Like this Elvis Chan thing is something I found last night, and I'm just like, oh, man, I've got to cover this. I mean, this guy, I don't even want to call him Elvis Chan because I already have a nice little nickname for him. Meet Elvis Chan, by the way. Here he is. A very lovely individual, you can tell. I'm deeming him Wally Weaselbottom. These are the kind of people that are going to fortify our elections. These are the kind of people that have no problem censoring your internet. There's Wally Weaselbottom right here. This is November 29th, 2022. So about, 8 months ago or so? 8.5 maybe? So this is in regards to the lawsuit, the state of Missouri, versus Biden, etc. So, they censored, they lied. And here's Wally. Well, we're not going to play any of it, but he's looking down, thinning hair. Yeah, ha 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 ha. Everything's funny then, but guess what? Dude's still going to be in charge, or not in charge, part of the mechanisms, the apparatus of fortifying the elections. This is it. So, this is the New Civil Liberties Alliance, by the way. You're not going to hear much about this. I didn't hear about this. Fauci had to give a 7-hour deposition. This stuff's really worth watching. I had no idea. This guy actually, so although it happened on this date, they were released in March. So I guess they've only been out about 3.5 months. And I really just stumbled upon them doing research on this guy after this video I pulled up. I'm almost tempted to not start with Wally Weaselbottom and start with this other video from the Wally Weaselbottom group, which I may just have to do. Because they're fighting bears and trolls. And I think that, what is it, the naval, there's a naval aspect for some reason to this thing. I forget what naval school it is, but let's fight some bears and trolls with the U.S. government. This is the kind of crap we're paying for, by the way. We pay for all this. We pay them to fortify the elections. We pay them to censor the internet. This is why Homeland Security is 100% not necessary, should have never been formed in the first place. It circumvented the Constitution and Bill of Rights like never before. It codified what an already rogue and illegal justice system and military industrial complex were doing. That's what it did. It made it worse. over and over and over again. But this is the kind of thing coming out of Homeland Security, fighting bears and trolls.
My thesis endeavored to evaluate the effectiveness of the Russian disinformation campaigns targeting the 2020 U.S. elections and the efforts taken by the U.S. government and social media companies to thwart them. To develop countermeasures for Russian interference activities targeting future American elections, my thesis asked the question, what impact did the countermeasures taken by the American social media companies and the U.S. government have on Russian online influence campaigns?
Now, look at this robot. This guy right here. Don't worry, when he gives his little presentation, it's like the National Naval Academy or some nonsense, but it's part of Homeland Security. When he gives his little presentation, he's got a little bit more flair, a little more pizzazz, a little more humanity. But I've talked about it before. I'm going to continue to talk about it because it's the truth. They treat us like children. They treat us... We're supposed to look... First of all, these people very much want us to look at them like a parental figure. Which, in some ways, I do because they are abusive parents, right? There's only so far I can go for accountability, right? That's the only time in your life, unless you come up against a leviathan of resources and wealth in something or the establishment, where you're kind of helpless, right? If your parents are abusive, not much, you can get out of it by what? Growing up and not doing what they did. And if it's more horrific than that, if we're talking about physical or sexual, forget about it, Those kids obviously feel trapped. Sometimes there's some repercussions if you can catch those people, but unfortunately, more often than not, people walk on that stuff. Terrible, I know. Like it's the darkness. But, at a certain level, they're going to tell you Santa Claus is real. Even a good parent, right? They're going to tell you about the tooth fairy. They're going to treat you like a child. These people are perpetually treating you like children while lying to you. But it's okay because just like parents, they have your best interests at heart, right? The parent will argue, well, we didn't want to ruin Christmas. I get that. Well, we didn't want to ruin the election. We didn't want to let Donnie T in there. That wasn't it. So now they put out like a robot, Wally Weaselbottom, Elvis Chan here, and he's got cartoons for you and to tell you about the Russians, the bad Ruskies, and the 2020 elections. And again, obviously, this is baseline evidence for Poot putting that cocaine in the White House.
Targeting the 2020 U.S. elections. In order to evaluate the qualitative effectiveness of the Russian measures and American countermeasures, I used a framework developed by Thomas Wilhelm, a U.S. Army researcher. Wilhelm made this framework based on the principles of a prominent military general named Andrei Kartapolov to understand Russian hybrid warfare. Kartapolov believed that information operations should 1. Spread discontent in the population, 2. Exert political pressure, and 3. Confuse the political leadership.
Like, first of all, the idea that psychological warfare hasn't been going on for literally decade upon decade upon decade upon decade, and that hasn't been utilized by the U.S. military-industrial complex, and really the global military-industrial complex, and really the technopoly itself of not only their tech companies and banking industries, but any industry of prominence, from the sugar industry, right, to the alcohol industry, to the tobacco industry. They all use Bernaysian tools and subconscious cues. They all use psychological warfare. And in the political arena, none of these things, right here, up with Mossadegh, Gladio, even the failed Bay of Pigs, all this stuff, like Thomas Wilhelm, he figured it out. Look at that mustache. It's a hell of a mustache, sir. We're going to talk about that mustache and more after a word from our sponsor. Thumbs it up, subscribe, and share, everybody. RVMRumble.com for the second hour.
We interrupt today's programming to bring unfortunate news. Biden's dangerous plan for a digital dollar is underway. Don't be fooled. It won't benefit you. So take action now. The Federal Reserve's phased deployment of FedNow began on July 1st, 2023. Be prepared. This may catch many off guard and put your hard-earned assets in jeopardy. But here's the good news. There's a simple legal tax loophole to opt out of the digital dollar. Speak to someone at American Alternative Assets for a free wealth protection guide and discover how to safeguard your wealth with gold and silver IRAs against a failing dollar and volatile markets. Dial 833, the number 2 USA Gold. Yes, call now, 833-287-2465. This invaluable guide provides precise steps to transfer your IRA or 401k into precious metals without any tax consequences. Don't let Biden force you into using the government's new digital dollar. Call 833, the number 2 USA Gold. Yes, call now, 833-287-2465. Act swiftly, 833-287-2465.
And you know, before we get back to Elvis Chan, a.k.a. Wally Weaselbottom, and his fourth grade presentation, I do want to say that I do believe lies don't make friends. Truth is the ultimate love, and things based in lies are never for the greater good, in my opinion. That's just not the way the world works. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say I've never lied, or there aren't situations where I think that you should lie for self-preservation, especially in a sketchy situation where something doesn't feel right. There are certain people that obviously are not owed the truth, those with malfeasance in their heart and malcontent, maybe even intent of physical harm to you, depending. But for the most part, you know, honesty is the best policy. Like I said, lies don't make friends. We don't lie here on this show. We tell the truth. We give our real opinion. And, you know, that was just talking about the digital dollar, et cetera, et cetera. We've all talked about CBDCs. Before I go back to Chan, I got a clip of an individual from BlackRock. I think it's the head of BlackRock. It might not be, but it could be. Talking about now how crypto's the digital gold. It's digital gold. And I want to say this. Every technology out there has an upside and a downside. And I know that there's so many people out there that made a lot of money in Bitcoin and are almost religious about touting Bitcoin. Max Kaiser, right? And I could have made a lot of money in Bitcoin back in the day. Who knows when you would have got rid of it, right? Well, I knew about it when it was like less than $1 many years ago. And we started talking about it. I was like, well, first of all, I don't know that anything is really going to be decentralized or secure. Look now, there are specific cryptocurrencies that are built up not to be, most of them, not to be decentralized. And the security lies in the code with these smart contracts. So it's a programmable token. And then, well, that wasn't the intention of Bitcoin, but it got a bunch of people onto this crypto scene. And if you believe in fairy tales like Satoshi Nakamoto or whatever Satoshi! Like, oh, some brilliant genius wrote up his paper and came out with it, and it just got pushed everywhere. You're out of your mind. You don't understand how social engineering actually works. Psychological warfare actually works. And it works by incrementally allowing technologies that have already been beta tested underground to get into the public arena and get people used to that type of thing. And don't get me wrong, even before cryptocurrency, many of us were just ready to swipe. And it was really with cryptocurrency coming out, and more people using their mobile device as their quote-unquote computer or their online device. Now it's all integrated into that device, okay? And this device can take your biometrics too. Those are just the facts, Jack. Just the facts. So let's play this clip, because now BlackRock's getting behind crypto. And once again, just like the stock market, this stuff can be manipulated. It can be, period. It can be manipulated. If you think that this is the way to freedom and decentralization, I just don't buy it.
And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold in many ways. Instead of investing in gold as a hedge against inflation, a hedge against the onerous problems of any one country, or the devaluation of your currency, whatever country you're in. Let's be clear. Bitcoin is an international asset. It's not based on any one currency, and so it can represent an asset that people can play as an alternative. I would call the foundation of BlackRock is about hope. You invest for retirement because you believe tomorrow is better than today.
It's about hope. It's not about consolidation and control. It's not about greed and the regimentation of all human beings. It's not about extracting the wealth from the middle class in a plutocratic manner. No, it's not about getting the average person on a universal basic income so they can live in a smaller place and own less, if anything. It's not about fortifying elections. BlackRock loves you. Elvis Chan, aka Wally Weaselbottom, he loves you too. And we're going to go back to Wally and his nice little presentation, treating us like children, to let you know how the Russians, the bad Russians, how they stole elections with psychological warfare. Those damn Ruskies. Damn them to hell. Where are we? Right there. Fighting bears and trolls.
The Russian and American actions were evaluated based on their ability to fulfill these three elements. The Internet Research Agency, also known as the IRA, shifted its tactics from the 2016 U.S. elections. Instead,
like, just the fact that they call them the IRA, the Internet Research Agency, like trying to equate them with the Irish Public Army. Like, these people they're over the top.
Instead of relying
Without
solely
shame.
on its social media influence campaigns, the IRA made three key moves. First, the IRA looked to expand its base of operations by opening new offices in Ghana and Nigeria under the front company known as Eliminating Barriers for the Liberation of Africa. Second, the IRA made fake news websites in order to fan the divisiveness on both ends of the political spectrum.
Now let's talk about that. You know how fake that is? Do you understand how fake that is? Can anybody out there point to a website that was ever specifically put to Russian trolls? Do you remember their paper? They actually, when they did their initial paperwork on this bullshit, all the way back in the 2016 era, they had RT, which eventually gets banned. They banned RT in this country. All right, so they put RT and Abby Martin in there. Abby Martin hadn't had a show for years at that point when they put her in this paperwork as some kind of fake news. So there are no fake news websites to fan the division on both ends. When they're talking about bots linked to Russians, again, show me the money. Show me the viral post or story that was started by the Russians and not some FBI asset or informant. Show me, Wally. Come on, Mr. Weaselbottom. Surely in this cartoon that you will have an example, right? Not just we're going to have a building and we're going to write some words on it. Come on.
For progressives, the IRA made a website named Peace Data and hired unwitting freelance journalists to write content. Similarly, for conservatives, the IRA made a website called the Newsroom for American and European-based citizens.
Ever heard of those websites before? No. You know why? Because nothing came out of there that was viral. And by the way, even if any of this is true, and then they hired other journalists, all right, what was the content of these articles that never went viral? Can anybody tell me that they knew either one of those sites during the election cycle, or know those sites now? Or am I just supposed to be in imagination land? Well, I imagine that they were popular. No one knew these sites. It's ridiculous.
Third, the IRA used artificial intelligence to generate deep fake profile images of website staff and writers for both websites. Examining the IRA's actions using the Kartopolov framework revealed that the Russians continued trying to spread discontent in America and exerting political pressure on the U.S. government through their non-stop disinformation operations.
Again, the couscous got it right. We played the couscous yesterday, Dennis Kucinich, for a reason. Imagination land. They didn't show you one story. They talked about 2 websites that no one's ever heard of. Ever. You'd act like, oh man, they'd infiltrated the right with Breitbart and InfoWars, and they were cycling those stories. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
However, the IRA did not appear to be successful in confusing the political leadership, as the U.S. government and social media companies were able to detect the IRA's shift in tactics.
It's not true. You just censored American citizens. No one knew about those stories in the first place.
In contrast to taking no efforts to stop Russian interference during the 2016 U.S. elections, the social media companies took a series of actions during the 2020 U.S. elections. First, the companies developed and implemented technology to detect and shut down the Internet Research Agency's accounts on their platforms.
Again, total bullshit. No, you censored American citizens. You used algorithmic technology to censor American citizens. But he's wearing a nice little polo, and he's got some glasses and a neat haircut, and he's diverse enough. He's Elvis Chan, a.k.a. Wally Weaselbottom.
They provided public notifications of these takedowns on at least a quarterly basis. Second, the companies partnered with each other, non-governmental organizations, and researchers such as Graphica, the Stanford Internet Observatory, and the Oxford Internet Institute.
Stanford and Oxford, they're a good representation of the populace in both Europe and the United States and the Anglo-American establishment. Hear, hear! Hear, hear! Oxford said so. I mean, these are recruitment centers for the establishment and their narratives. Don't worry, we partnered with the best. We partnered with the best.
In order to better analyze Russian influence operations. Third, the social media companies coordinated with the U.S. government. First
of all, this coordination, which he's going to talk about, had been long established prior to this, to the elections. Seriously, they already had partnered with shitty media organizations like Vox and YouTube as authoritative source. This is stuff that I was covering in 2017, 2018. They were gearing you up to fortify the elections with outright censorship. They'd already given you, whether you liked it or not, a soft type of censorship for guys like me, right? For narratives that go against the right or the left. They'll allow, some types of conservative narratives out there and the liberal ones. It's just like the Durham Report. Durham Report can be damning to one side, and the other side can say, look, nobody got arrested. Oh, it's all bull snap. If you're not willing to do that, if you're willing to go for the jugular on both ends, they already had it for you. They just fortified or codified the way they were going to take you down to Chinatown and just take you out. Right? And they're going to tell you that you're part of the IRA and the Russian bot system. Some kind of psychological warfare disinformation campaign. You've succumbed to the 2 websites you've never heard of. We better censor you. We got to go to a word from our sponsor. We're going to come back. We're going to continue with fighting bears and trolls with Wally Weaselbottom after this.
Attention Americans, breaking news. Biden's dangerous plan for a digital dollar is underway. Don't be fooled. It won't benefit you. Take action now. The Federal Reserve phased deployment of FedNow began on July 1st, 2023. Be prepared. This may catch many off guard. Your hard-earned assets are in jeopardy. But there's a simple legal tax loophole to opt out of the digital dollar. Reach out to American Alternative Assets for a free wealth protection guide and discover how to safeguard your wealth with gold and silver IRAs against a failing dollar and volatile markets. Visit protectfrombiden.com. This invaluable guide provides precise steps to transfer your IRA or 401k into precious metals without any tax consequences. Be smart. Don't let Biden force you into using the government's new digital dollar. Visit protectfrombiden.com to get your free guide and get started. Again, that's protectfrombiden.com.
Thumbs up, subscribe, and share. Remember, the second hour is always free over at rvmrumble.com. That's rvmrumble.com. Make sure you're following us over at Rumble as well, and you're liking it there. You're sharing these via emails, and you're letting people know about the show and the website. That really does help. I appreciate all of you guys for supporting the broadcast. Without further ado, we're going to fight some more bears and trolls with Wally Weaselbottom.
Coordination took the form of information sharing and providing referrals to the U.S. government.
So information sharing and referrals to the U.S. government, what he's not telling you, and he needs to tell you, is that former FBI, DOJ, CIA, NSA, and a number of consultancy agencies, right, pseudo-government agencies, employees of those are working there too. Sometimes still working at those consultancy agencies that are not considered part of the intelligence apparatus, even though they clearly are. They're front companies.
Through the Kartopolov framework, the social media companies were generally effective in detecting and shutting down IRA-generated accounts and content before they could gain traction with users. The U.S. government also appeared to be more publicly active ahead of the 2020 elections. These were shown through the public actions of the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA.
So once again, why do we have Homeland Security? The Homeland Security, the entire infrastructure, was truly set up not for foreign operations, but to look for an enemy within. And the enemy within are the citizens of the United States that would challenge the establishment. And I know there's a lot of people that joined Homeland Security that thought something different, that worked on something different. You know, I talked about Sound of Freedom. The beginning of that film is essentially all Homeland Security. Those things were going on without Homeland Security. Just like we had border operations before Homeland Security. It was a regrouping so they could sneak in this real agenda, the fusion centers. Okay? And the ultimate goal, I want to repeat this, the ultimate goal of these people is, when we're talking about through Homeland Security, is pre-crime for large groups of people that they believe might be a problem with implementing total and complete tyranny and their fourth industrial revolution. And look, there's so many people out there in the, I guess you would say, conservative arena that I talk to. For instance, an interview I did with Floyd G. Brown of Western Journal. That'll be available this evening. He talks about, if we don't win this election, that's it. There's so many people, we don't win this election, that's it. Guys, there was no red wave. We've not changed the infrastructure of the machines. What are we talking about here? If that's the case, why are we sitting on our asses in July, of the year before the election? Because when it's July of next year, and now we're really it's heating up. It's heating up, and you're less than 4 months out from Election Day, right around that marker. What do you think? Some miracle's going to happen? Joe Biden's made it this far. Who knows? A lot can happen in a year, guys. But so far, Elvis Chan, he's going to be fine. He's going to help fortify the elections with Homeland Security and the FBI and stop narratives from forming and taking out those pesky IRA websites.
The FBI's Protected Voices initiative involved providing cybersecurity briefings to all the presidential candidates and national-level political organizations in order to prevent another 2016 DNC hack and dump attack. CISA...
There was no hack and dump attack. It's never a hack and dump. It's not real either. It's fiction. There's no evidence any information was hacked. A direct download with somebody with access. That's not a hack. And we know what happened in 2020. A bunch of you guys, again, said that it was Russian disinformation. Those that would admit the Hunter Biden laptop was real, again, it was supposed to be a Russian hack and dump. Another Russian hack and dump operation.
Worked with every state's election office to ensure the election infrastructure was secure against cyber attacks. During and after the elections, the U.S. intelligence community put out several advisories which outed malicious Russian cyber activities and provided overviews of other foreign state-sponsored malign influence operations. Under the Kartopolov framework, the U.S. government worked with the social media companies to detect and eliminate IRA-generated activities on their platform.
I mean, everything about this article, I would assume this has got to be like an Atlantic article, right? I'm looking at the font. Let's see, a Russian military framework for understanding influence operations. Let's type it in. How much we want to bet this is an Atlantic article? A Russian military framework for understanding influence operations. Or influence operation. Let's see, is it the Atlantic? Oh, it's army.mil. So the idea that all this isn't militarized is that it's got to be, right? Military review. This is the PDF. Should we do it live? We'll do it live. Let's see what we got. Come on. Boom. Yes, this is it. With Tom Wilhelm from Vladimir Safenko. Man, come on, web browser. Why are you doing me like that? But again, we just have to accept this. It's military and DOJ propaganda. But no, Jason. No. Leslie will tell me no. No, they're fortifying elections. They're fortifying them.
In this election cycle, the U.S. government seemed to be decisive in its actions and was not overcome by the political pressure generated by the IRA's continued influence campaigns. Were the findings consistent with my expectations? Overall, my findings were consistent with my expectations. Specifically, I believe the Russians would shift their tactics as the social media companies and U.S. government enacted countermeasures to thwart their efforts.
I mean, think about how incompetent this guy is if any of that were true. It was exactly what I thought it was, is those pesky Russians, and if we institute censorship of the pesky Russians, or everybody that we just call pesky Russians, we'll have the outcome we want. And it's militarized and FBI, DOJ, Homeland Security run. F you. Good old Wally Weaselbottom. I'm so glad that they made these cartoons to explain to me what a moron I am.
The Russians did use some limited artificial intelligence in the form of deepfake images for profile photos on their fake news sites. However, I thought they would find some ways to use artificial intelligence to amplify their social media operations. I also thought the Internet Research Agency would try to use other social media platforms, such as TikTok and Snapchat, for its influence campaigns. Instead, they tried to use Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to drive users to fake news sites where they controlled the content.
Again, Johnny, they're showing, first of all, pictures of software that uses deepfake that has nothing to do with Russia in the corner. They were going to use artificial intelligence to sway the election on Snapchat. No evidence that there is even websites that gained any traction run by Russians, ever.
The Office of the Director of National Intelligence forecasts Russia will continue to interfere in future U.S. elections to degrade the United States' global credibility and weaken its influence overseas. For the 2020 elections, social media companies and the U.S. government mainly focused on security and transparency measures. Specifically, information sharing is one of the measures which should be systematized. The information sharing between public and private sector organizations could be formalized and standardized through the establishment of social media information sharing and analysis centers, also known as an ISAC. The ISAC model has proven successful in other sectors, such as the finance industry and for state governments. The 2020 National Defense Authorization Act provided the provision wherein the Office of the Director of National Intelligence could form a National Counter-Information Operations Center. This center would serve as a focal point to allow relevant U.S. government elements to work alongside social media companies to combat disinformation.
Oh, they've got dual or triple Dell monitors. They mean business. Look at that tie. And they're talking to one another. Again, algorithms run most of the censorship operations. Has nothing to do with Russia. And the agents are really there to implement those algorithms. And when there is a direct threat, a direct post to immediately either eliminate that threat by just banning that person, okay, or algorithmically shutting that post down so it can't get any traction. And none of this is new. It's been happening again and again and again. Now it's just more well-funded. Now they're out in the open about it. Again, Wally Weaselbottom over here, okay, he looks very trustworthy. You can tell by all the the eye contact he's making. It's a 6.5 hour deposition. Again, I may have to watch some of these things. This may be my new favorite channel, New Civil Liberties Alliance, over on the YouTube. But again, they're out in the open. This guy, not charismatic, doesn't seem extremely intelligent. When we get to his actual presentation, where he's not like reading off of a script, he's a little bit more human. But the message is the same. Russia, Jan.
The first two recommendations may not be sufficient for future elections because of the current political rancor in the United States. To that end, resiliency measures will be the third critical component to promote a flourishing American democracy. Specifically, education programs for school-aged children and career development or continuing education programs for adults.
Re-education camps for adults and indoctrination for kids. That's what they're really telling you right here. Re-education camps for adults and indoctrination centers for kids. One of the things this jackass, Wally Weaselbottom, actually says in his other speech is that before, I think it's 2016, most of us weren't even worried about election integrity or anything of the sort. None of us had ever heard about corrupt elections before. Nobody was ever concerned. Let's finish this up, and then we're going to go to a final word from our sponsor, wrap up the first hour, tell you where you can find the second. Hint, hint, it's rvmrumble.com.
Focused on improved media literacy will make the American populace less susceptible to disinformation campaigns. My thesis focused on Russian disinformation campaigns, which were effectively countered by the social media companies and U.S. government. However, a large portion of disinformation swirling around the social media platforms was generated and amplified by Americans. Much of this content is First Amendment protected free speech, which means that the U.S. government could not intervene.
But you did.
Determining how to handle this type of disinformation will be critical to protecting future elections.
Bears and trolls. Fighting bears and trolls with a VPN from our sponsor.
We love the internet, but the internet is tracking everything you do. Take control of your online privacy with IPVanish. People with malicious intent are everywhere, watching you. Criminals can hack your Wi-Fi, while broadband providers and advertisers monitor your data. With IPVanish on your device, your internet activity is encrypted. No one can see what you're doing. Your location, your connection, completely hidden. Protect your internet privacy today with IPVanish.
RVMVPN.com. IPVanish is my VPN. I run it on my phones, I run it on my computers, and I run it on my devices when need be. A number of advantages to a VPN. Support the broadcast if you're going to get one at RVMVPN.com. You will not be sad about that product. Okay. We're going to go over to the second hour. We are going to go over to Wally Weaselbottom's actual speech. Yes, this Wally Weaselbottom. That whole presentation is such a farce and so amateurish. It's hard to believe that these are the people in control and that these are the puppets that they've put out as mouthpieces. But just like everything in this country at this point, these are not impressive human beings, right? They're not achievers. They're not overachievers. They're malleable losers, in my opinion. So thumbs it up, subscribe, share. Second hour starting now over at rvmrumble.com. We'll